What's happening, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here, live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Very happy to be back on the show to recap this week's Buffalo Bills game as the Buffalo Bills win against the Carolina Panthers by a score of 31-14. And finally, I can hop on here and actually give you guys a take that features a Bills victory. How about them apples, right? How about them apples that the Buffalo Bills are back in the win column, 8-6, coming off of this 31-14 victory against the Carolina Panthers. And you won't hear me hop on the show today and say, wow, we did it. You know, the Bills are back. Wow, what a win this was. I'm not really going there in this show because I wasn't shocked that the Bills were able to come away with this victory. Frankly, the Bills should have won today. And they did. And they showed up and they played the way that they needed to play in order to win this game. But I'm not going to sit here on my show and misinform you guys and say that the Bills are back, that you know, all these, that they're AFC Super Bowl contenders. We'll leave that to the guys on WGR. You know, that we'll leave that to those guys. Shots fired early on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm not going to do that. It's easy to say that off of a win. It's easy to be optimistic off of a win. I'm optimistic for a few reasons, but it's not just because we just beat the Carolina Panthers. I'm not going to say I'm optimistic moving forward because we beat the Carolina Panthers. That's just not realistic. I'm optimistic because we beat the Carolina Panthers. And the team we play next week lost this week. And I do believe that the NFL this year, 2021, we have seen more parity, more games that are just shocking in terms of the result. Today, the Detroit Lions beating the Arizona Cardinals, the Colts beating the Patriots this week. You know, there's each week, it's like you can't predict this season. So that I can say is what the Bills have going for them moving forward is that, this season's been unpredictable. There's a lot of parity week in, week out towards, you know, who is legit, who isn't legit, who's a pretender, who's a contender. I'm not going to sit here on this show, and I'm just going to set the record straight before I really dive deep into this game. I'm not going to sit here on the show tonight and say, oh, I really think Buffalo can be, you know, a Super Bowl contender because we just won this game against Carolina. I'm going to lay it out differently. I'm going to lay it out very, very differently for you on the show. Obviously, while recapping the game, I encourage you all to fire away your comments in the comment section below. I enjoy hearing from each and every one of you. Truly, I do. You know, anytime I see a name on here that I know, it's cool. Anytime I see a name on here that I don't know, it's even cooler. So I am going to be sharing the heck out of this on Facebook. It's already on YouTube. I know I'll get some Bills haters. I've had some Patriots fans hop on the show and try to stir it up a little bit, which is, hey, I can dish it out. I can definitely take it. Just don't be scared when you dish it out and I dish it back. That's all I got to say about that. So the Buffalo Bills coming off of this win. Any win is a good win. I'm not trying to estimate how much this win is important to the team. They had to get back in the win column, but it's a win that I expected. And God damn it, maybe I'm wrong for expecting my Buffalo Bills to beat the 5-8 Carolina Panthers. But I sure as hell I'm gonna expect a win over a team that is simply not that great, over a team that has Cam Newton as their starting quarterback. I've been saying it for the better part of the last, 2 to 3 years that Cam Newton is not a starting quarterback in this league anymore. He's proven it time and time again, and I just simply, as a matter of fact, I know the utmost certainty that Carolina will probably move on from him. He's not good. He's not what he once was. And that's okay. It's okay to be somebody and then not be anymore. At least you were somebody at some point in the National Football League. I'm not trying to take his whole career away from him. But I just, when I'm looking at the schedule and I see, we play Carolina, we got Cam Newton coming to town. The fear of Cam Newton in 2015 in comparison to the fear of Cam Newton in 2021, 2022 is completely different. And I think that that's a plausible thought. I think that that's a plausible thought to have in regards to Cam Newton. Of course, I remind you guys that are tuning into the show, those of you that are just joining me, you can find this podcast, my podcast, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, on Facebook, YouTube, as well as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, which is personally my favorite. Spotify is awesome. A full library there of my episodes on the show. Yeah, I think I'm getting some comments now that I'm enjoying seeing them pop up, because it shows how educated this fan base is about this team. It shows how passionate this fan base is about their team. And I am most definitely going to be talking about some of these, comments, referring to some of these comments throughout the show. But of course, I got some answers for those questions already. So let's get right to it. Recapping this game, post-game reaction, getting it started here. We've already gotten it started in terms of what I think of how we evaluate this win. But what are the Ryan Thomas takeaways of the game, as I like to call them? My name, Ryan Thomas, my takeaways, of course, from this game. And first off, I want to say, first and foremost, last week I talked about Josh Allen and what he does for this team and how dynamic of an athlete he is at the quarterback position, and how rare of a specimen he is physically, how tough it more likely than not is for the opposition to game plan for a quarterback like that, regardless of the offensive line situation. I'm going to dive into that too in the show tonight. Josh Allen is impressing me every week, even in losses. I am impressed by what I've seen from him in terms of putting the team on his back, proving his worth, showing what he's capable of. It's truly been awesome this year. I think in some respects, he's had a quote-unquote better year this year than what he had last year. I know statistically last year was his breakout year, and last year we made it to the AFC title game. We went 13-3. Right now we're staring at 8-6 in terms of the win-loss record. I'm seeing, as I toss my remote there, I'm seeing a lot of reasons to believe that Josh Allen is coming off of his best season last year, but this season you can make a case that this season's even better because he's putting the team on his back. But the numbers of the game tell a tale, safe to say. The numbers of every game tell a tale, and this week, 31-14. I expected going into this one the defense would shut it down, but let's go Bills by the numbers, the top stats of the game. And when I look up the stats, I'm not looking up the stats for the major, offensive categories. I'm not looking up just Allen. I'm not looking up just Singletary. I'm not looking up just the receivers. I'm looking up the top stats of the day for the Buffalo Bills. And Josh Allen, 19-34 in this one, 210 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception. That interception, not the best of throws from Allen this year, but it's safe to say the rest of his game today, once again, leading us to victory, right? I don't think you could look at any 8 of these victories and say that Josh Allen wasn't more likely than not responsible for the bevy of the reason why the Bills were able to come away with these wins. But today, the guy that really showed up, somebody that really showed up today, Devin Singletary, 22 carries, 86 yards, a touchdown, as well as a yards per carry average of 3.9 yards. The Buffalo Bills have not had a statistically productive week like that from a running back all season long. So to get that in this game, I think it shows something that we have pondered, something that we have debated over, and that is whether or not the Buffalo Bills can generate a rushing offense. And Devin Singletary was able to do that for us today. Much to my happiness, I was extremely happy that Devin Singletary was able to get that done for us today in the running game. 22 carries, 86 yards. Cole Beasley, 4 of 35, Stephon Diggs, 4 of 35 with a receiving touchdown. Dawson Knox, obviously 4 of 38. And Devin Singletary as well, 1 catch for 10 yards. But the man that I am just simply calling on and saying pre-game today and post-game now, put Gabriel Davis on the field at all times. Anytime you put Gabe Davis out there, he produces. Last year, he was one of the greatest stories in recent Buffalo Bills history as far as a player that was drafted in the 4th round, mid-round pick, making good. 4th, 5th round, I can't remember off the top of my head. You guys might have to correct me on that. But my point is, the Bills haven't drafted a receiver that is young and immediately impactful since Stevie Johnson. And Gabriel Davis is that guy, is that next Stevie Johnson to this team. It's crazy. We talked about that last year all season long, but it's carried over to this year, and it couldn't be coming at a better time in terms of his progression, in terms of what he brings to the table to this offense, because we need any help we can get. Because the offensive line woes, despite Gabriel Davis having his best day of his career, 5 catches, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns, despite those numbers, this offensive line is not good. And even when the offensive line was healthy, even when you had the original starting 5 on the offensive line, whether it was Deion Dawkins, whether it was John Feliciano, Mitch Morse, Darrell Williams, Spencer Brown, that's probably their best offensive line in terms of the value and depth of what that brings to the table. But today, going into this one, no Deion Dawkins, no John Feliciano. I knew firsthand that they could move Spencer Brown to tackle, and they did. And then you have Ike Bodker, and you have a player that I've referred to as a liability and the B word, the bust, that I fear that he is. And Cody Ford at right guard, Darrell Williams at right tackle, and Darrell Williams has been a better right guard for us as of late than he was a tackle, because Brown was a tackle on the right side, shifted over to the left. This offensive line is very, very much a problem. And going up against the team that we're playing next week, the New England Patriots, we have to get this figured out. I'd love to be able to pump my fist and say all these Buffalo Bills are going to stroll into Foxborough and beat the Patriots. And maybe they will with the offensive line that they went in there with today. Who knows? As I've said, this league has been unpredictable over the course of this year, but I doubt it, because the Carolina Panthers are not the New England Patriots. And this team is already over-relying on Josh Allen. And when anyone hates on Josh Allen, I hit them back with, do you realize what this guy does for this team? How he puts this team on his back every single week, despite no run game, despite a lack of depth on their offensive line, and as well as a average offensive line, even when the guys are healthy. You realize what he does for this team. If the Bills miss the playoffs, which I don't think they will, but if they did, there's no player better on a missed playoff team than Josh Allen. I could argue that Josh Allen, despite the Bills being 8-6, is having, obviously what I said, his best season, but is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And all that said, we're talking about how bad this offensive line is week 15 heading into week 16. You get the Patriots, Jets, Falcons, Jets. Order doesn't matter. Those are the 3 teams we play to bookend this season. And I am extremely worried about this offensive line. I've been worried about it, but to see the offensive line play in these games against a team like the Panthers, Carolina's got a solid defensive unit. They've been solid all season long. But I wonder a lot about how this line is run blocking, how this line is pass blocking. Today, I would argue, and as I mentioned, Devin Singletary's stats, I would argue that Devin Singletary had his best game of the season despite a shifted offensive line. So now the woes continued in terms of the amount of time they gave Josh Allen. I would say typically the pass blocking of this Bills offensive line is pretty damn good. Today, not so good. But the run blocking was better. So it's like we can't have both. We can't have a solid pass block and a solid run block. We can only have one or the other. And it doesn't really fulfill my appetite, so to speak. I want both. I want the cheese. I want the cheese, the pepperoni, and the green olives. I don't want just cheese and pepperoni. I want a little bit more than that. So that's just how I see this offensive line as of now, heading into this matchup against the Patriots, a crucial one, an important one. The division crown is literally on the line. And a man that Bills fans have really come to enjoy and root for, and a player that was drafted this past year that I do see what others see. I see a guy who was drafted by this team late in the draft this past year that has come in and has stepped up and has been extremely physical at the line of scrimmage, and it's Spencer Brown. But Spencer Brown is in my doghouse. Despite the day today, you can't have 5 penalties, and Spencer Brown's 5 penalties today felt like 50. Last week, I ragged on Tremaine Edmonds because I watched the tape of the Tampa Bay game after the fact. So I was watching it live, and it was very hard to find a good play from Tremaine Edmonds. Spencer Brown, I can't say the same thing. Spencer Brown did what he needed to do to help this team win today, but he also was a contributing factor, a major factor in making this game much closer than it needed to be. And those 5 penalties, when you're one player committing 5 penalties, the spotlight is on you. And I feel like a lot of fans that I debated with today about this, they said, well, he was playing out of position, which is true. I can't deny that. He's normally playing right tackle. He's playing left tackle. But to have that position switch and to be worse in that regard, that is, I don't want to say double bad, but it's even worse. It's even worse. Can't happen. It can't happen. And, to take a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty when you've already committed 4 penalties on your own, I think it's something to zero in on and say, that's what we got to focus on with Spencer Brown. Maybe he's a little bit of a hothead. I think the Buffalo offensive line needs a little bit of that. Dare I say, like the Richie Incognito, type temperament. But those types of penalties against the Carolina Panthers are one thing. Those types of penalties against the New England Patriots are nails in the coffin. So it's just something I noticed today. I'm obviously not going to rip apart Spencer Brown. He's a rookie on this team that is playing a very important role, 2 very important roles on this offensive line. At one point, he was right tackle. Today, he played left tackle. And that was obviously a tough day for him at the office. You have a solid front 7 there in Carolina. And Spencer Brown did not have his best day in terms of not allowing those penalties. But the big question of the night, and it's a question that I hinted towards earlier in the show, it's just a simple fact that can this season be what we thought it would be still? Can this season be what we thought it would be? I thought before this season started, Ryan Thomas, host of the Thomas Take Sports podcast, guests from the reporting world, the sports news world, podcasters, former players, former coaches, I thought this Buffalo Bills team was going to cement themselves as the best team of the AFC in 2021 and 2022. I thought that the Buffalo Bills were going to win 13 or 14 games this season. I thought that this offense would solve the run game issues that they had last year with some of the new talent that they have on the offensive line and some of the guys that they already have. Turns out the Bills thought the same thing. And in that regard, I was wrong and the Bills were wrong because they misevaluated who was on the roster along that offensive line, and that's why we're seeing these issues. We've kept players here that shouldn't be here. Simply. It's blunt. It's kind of cold, but this is a business. We get lost in that fact all the time that we have to put the best players out there on the field in order to have the best chance to win. And if there's areas where you're weak, you can't just stay put there. And I don't expect Brandon Beane, and Sean McDermott to stay put there next offseason, 2022 offseason. But my point is, can this season be what we thought it would be still? The answer to that question will be answered this upcoming week against the Patriots. The division crown is still on the line. The Patriots, I think, are a much better team than what they even thought they would be heading into this season. Patriots knew who they were last year. They knew who they were going to be. They were a rebuilding team post Brady. But the success that they've had this year is largely from these new additions, and that rarely happens in the National Football League. You rarely see new additions take part. You see new additions take part, but you rarely see new additions take over. And that's what we've seen from the Patriots this year. And sidebar here, the Buffalo Bills, they weren't necessarily wrong for thinking that, hey, we went 13-3 last year. We won the division. We went to the AFC title game. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it wasn't broke. And they didn't fix it. But it turned out that some of the other teams got just a little bit better. Or a lot better in some cases. But one thing I know for certain, when looking at the rest of this AFC, this thing is wide open. This thing is wide open. There is no team that isn't vulnerable in some way. The Patriots just lost to the Colts. I go to look at the standings here, if it allows me to, with updated standings. I don't know if they'll necessarily be updated, but I go down the list of the standings, AFC standings, and I would look at every single team and say to myself, what team is perfect? What team is, oh, that's the team. Those are the guys. That's the team that's going to do it. That team. As of now, the Kansas City Chiefs have the number 1 seed. They're hot. Pat Mahomes is confident. The Chiefs have rattled off, 7 straight wins? So you look at that and you say, okay, well, they're obviously right now they're not vulnerable because they're hot. But they were pretty terrible. If you're 10-4, that means at one point you were 3-4. So how did they turn it around? And most importantly, for the opposition facing them, how do you get them back to where they were through the first 7 weeks of this season? One-dimensional, sputtering, forcing it on the offensive side of the ball. The Patriots, 9-5. They just lost to the Colts, who are 8-6. The Tennessee Titans, 9-5, who don't have Derrick Henry, who are not as good as they were with Derrick Henry, of course. Derrick Henry, more likely than not, had he stayed healthy, would have won the MVP award this year. Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. He plays good one week, and then he plays the Miami Dolphins the next week and looks absolutely horrible. Plus, he's not healthy. And the Indianapolis Colts, Carson Wentz, period. I don't know what more to say about that. At some point, the Colts are going to have to rely on Carson Wentz to get them a W. Jonathan Taylor is not enough. And I love Jonathan Taylor. I think Jonathan Taylor is a great back. But at some point, the quarterback has to step up. It's a quarterback-driven league. The Chargers are an interesting one because Justin Herbert is the second coming of Dan Marino. I think the guy is just unbelievable. So good. So good. But then there's weeks where their coach doesn't really play to win. He plays to not lose. And there is a major, major difference. They should have beaten the Chiefs this past week, and they didn't due to that thought process. And then you have this log jam between the Cleveland Browns at 7-6, the Cincinnati Bengals at 7-6, Denver Broncos at 7-6, Pittsburgh 7-6, Miami 7-7. Miami, outside of Kansas City, is the hottest team in the conference with 6 straight wins. Chiefs with 7 straight wins. These teams are going on tears post losing to the Buffalo Bills. It's wide open. It is wide open. The highest scoring offense in the AFC is the Indianapolis Colts with 398 points for. Second place, the Buffalo Bills. The lowest point against in the conference is New England with 227 points against. Then you have Denver, and then you have the Buffalo Bills. So points against, at least in the AFC, Bills have the third best defense, points against, and the second best offense, points against, at 8-6. So we know one thing is for sure. The Bills, each team is their record. They're 8-6. They deserve to be. But looking at this season, I know one thing for certain. There's 3 wins there that they should have had. The Jacksonville one. Okay. Horrible. The New England one. They should have won that game. Last week against Tampa Bay, they should have won that game. Even going back to week 1, which feels like an eternity ago, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they should have won that game. You start the season at home, you should find a way to come out with a W. Block punt? What? Couldn't get it done. 8-6. But you know what? I don't want to say I wouldn't have it any other way, because I would. I want those 3 wins back, but I can't go back in time. I don't have a time machine, unfortunately. If anybody does, you let me know. I'll go back in time, help the Bills win somehow. Spike Jonathan Taylor's, punch and put him on the bench so they don't lose to the Colts. I don't know, guys. I feel 8-6. They have a chance with their back against the wall to go back to basics and prove that they belong in the conversation as one of the best teams in the AFC. It's in their hands. They just have to grab it, squeeze it, hold on to it, and not let it go. They let it go. They had it, fell out of their hands. They didn't pick it back up. Now they got to pick it back up. And I think they can. On to New England. Mac Jones, I'm not going to knock him because I think Mac Jones is a decent quarterback. I liked him coming out of the draft. I felt like if the New England Patriots drafted him, it would be terrible for this division. Jets fans, Dolphins fans, Bills fans, because I felt like he was the best fit for Josh McDaniels' offense. But he's human. He's not Jesus. He's not Tom Brady. I mean, I'm not comparing Jesus to, I'm saying, he's human. Tom Brady's 44 and still doing it. Will Mac Jones be 44 and still doing it? I highly, highly doubt it. So let's pump the brakes here. All right, national media, pump the brakes. Let's get to some comments. Eric Williamson, says, why did it take so long to get Dave involved with the offense? That's the question that you should ask Eric for Brian Dable. Ryan Thomas would have got him involved in the offense. Just saying. Would have tried to make it happen. Just saying. Dan says, the 2 3-and-outs in the final minutes were kind of ridiculous. I completely agree. But, hey, we won. We'll just battle in for next year. Or not next year, for next week. And buckle down. Hunker down. Let's get it done. Right? Let's do this. Let's do Gerard Reed. He says, do you think they established a run today, and should the NFL notice it? I think they did their best job at establishing a run than they have all year. And I think that is in large part due to the comment that Dan says next. Dan Hogg says, when we run to the outside, it works, but when we constantly go up the gut, it doesn't. That's all on Dable. That is all on Dable. To not know in your 4th year within this offense, with this team, with who you have, how to run your backs, whether Singletary should be, a zone runner moving to the outside, or a counter runner moving to the outside, or delays on the inside, if any delays would be the type of run that I would want from the inside perspective. But That's terrible. That is just terrible that you don't know how to use those backs. And I think we're at a point now where we know who we are. We know they know how talented they are. They're practicing with each other every day. This defense never gets talked about. And yet, yeah, they got ran on by the best backs in the league. So what? So what? Move on. You're not going to sit around and pout about it. Move on. Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry. Yeah, a record's a record. We can only control the controllable. The controllable is now and the future. Now, next week against the Patriots, I'm on to New England. And one thing is for certain, I want to beat them. I don't want to beat them. I want to beat them badly. I want to go to Foxborough without 50-mile-an-hour winds and kick their ass. Pardon my French. But this was our division last year. This was our opportunity this year to take the AFC. We only have ourselves to blame for letting it fall through our fingers, but now we still got the chance to take it back. We're 8-6. They're 9-5. The stage is set. We fly to Foxborough to take on Bill Belichick. And we go to New England to do what we want to do. We don't go to New England to do what they want us to do or to do what they're doing. We go to New England to do what we do. That is one major talking point that I hope Sean McDermott drills home to his coaching staff, drills into his own head, is that, yes, we're going to go to New England. We're going to try to beat them, but we're going to try to beat them the Buffalo Bills way. And they know what that is. It's spreading this offense out, allowing Josh Allen to pick and choose which weapon he wants to put the football in their hands, I should say. Which weapon does Josh Allen want to throw to? And if those guys are covered, Josh Allen looks to find any room for yardage. And if that doesn't work, in the meantime, peppered in. Find ways to put the ball in space. Find ways to put the ball in space with Singletary. Find ways to put the ball in space with Dawson Knox. Find ways to utilize what you have. Find ways to work against what you don't have. I don't need to see consistent dives. I don't need to see consistent under center anything. I need consistent shotgun. I need consistent plays in space. I need yards after catch. I need single coverage matchups. I need Gabe Davis. I need Gabe Davis out on the field at all times, period. He's not only the second best receiver on this team, he's the best run blocker as a receiver on this team. He needs to be out there. If Gabe Davis is running to the sideline at the half or is running into the tunnel and he's throwing up, that's good. That's real good. That means he's getting worked overtime. That means he's producing, because when Gabe Davis is on the field, he is producing. He is productive. I'm on to New England. I want to beat these assholes. I want to beat them bad. And I think we can. And yeah, I'm fired up. I'm very fired up because all week long after that New England loss, all you heard was the crowning of Mac Jones as the king of the AFC East. The New England Patriots as the kings of the AFC again. Oh, wow, they're in the one seed again. Oh, wow, look at Bill Belichick. He reinvented it. He did it again. He reinvented himself. The season's not over. Last time I checked, we still got 3 games left. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Never do it. Because then at the end of the day, when you do that, you do it too soon, it only makes you look like an idiot. You got WEEI in Boston saying, oh, Bill Belichick reinvented the wheel. No. He got what he needed to get. They got better. That's it. And it sounds so simple. And I'm not saying that that's not good. I'm not saying that I shouldn't give the Patriots credit. But I think for whatever reason, there's an odd sense that the league wants what it wants. They want Bucks versus Patriots. They want Brady versus Belichick in the Super Bowl. And no, That's corny to angle that. Let the games play themselves out the right way, the natural way, rather than making these games what they are. That's my thought on that. I think we got a real good shot going into the Patriots Stadium. Weather's supposed to be pretty decent. Force Mac Jones to beat you. Obviously, Trey White not in the lineup. He's out for the year, of course. But I really like what Dane Jackson has done in wake of Trey White not being in the lineup. I really like what the Bills defense has done in the last 6 quarters of football. 4 quarters against Carolina, 2 quarters against Tampa Bay, outside of that one play in overtime. I like what we've done. Call me crazy. Any given Sunday, the Detroit Lions beat the Arizona Cardinals. Who is to say that we can't beat the Patriots? Let's get it done. Ryan Thomas of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, ladies and gentlemen, that was the Buffalo Bills Week 15 post-game show as the Buffalo Bills win 31-14 against the Carolina Panthers. 8-6. Patriots 9-5. Let's take the AFC East crown and roll into the final 2 games of the year at home against the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Jets. I'm not looking past them, but I think that's the easiest schedule that any team could have in the final 2 weeks of the season. Just saying. Go Bills. On to New England. Let's get it done.